Hello and welcome to the shed. In today's video we're going to start work on the cupboard door that you see here. Today's video is going to be part one of a 2 or 3 part series. In today's video we're going to be covering the dimensioning of the stock and getting it ready for our joinery. I've got these pieces of Tasmanian oak here, and I have this nice piece of jarrah here. So the jarrah is going to form the uprights, so the hinge side and the far side, and the cross stretches are going to be made up using the Tasmanian oak. Now my plan here is for 3 cross stretches with mitred half-laps. With these cross stretches, obviously I only have 2 planks here, so what we're going to do is dimension these to the width of about 70mm, and the leftover, which should give me 40 off both of them, I'm going to glue them together to try and make the central cross rail. If it doesn't work out, I will go get some new material to work that one out, but I'm hoping that I can make it work with these. These are already at the exact width that I require here, so there's not much room for error here. So let's get in here, mark these out, and get sawing. First of all, what we're going to do is mark the 70s on our light timber, because what I want to do is saw these. I'm going to mark these and saw these before I do the jarrah, so I don't get any cross staining from the darker wood on the lighter wood. Although the Tasmanian oak doesn't tend to stain, I like to avoid that from occurring. So for my 70, what I'm going to do is get my most accurate marking device. Although my marking gauge does have markers on it, I still like to use something like a combination square that's got a very accurate ruler, and then I can just come straight on here Alright, I need to lift this up so I can come on here, push it up against it, partially lock that down, then I will double check it again that we've actually got it accurate. Always double check with these marking gauges and then lock them down so they don't move. So I just want to double check that these are actually still square, which they were. Yeah, they're square on all sides. For that purpose, I'm actually just going to make a little marking on here. So now I know which side's the reference side, which is this. Reference face in this case doesn't matter too much at this point. Same with this piece of jarrah, I've already checked it, and it's flat to this face here, so I've just done that little swirly, little swirl mark on this side, little arrow pointing to the face that it's squared to. So obviously we now need to go off our reference edge and our reference face, which is actually this side here. Really the reference edge is all that counts here. So I hold these over the top, and I've always got sideways pressure, so the round part here stays engaged. I hold it over the top, I hold the stem here so that can't move, and I've got sideways pressure pushing in. So my finger here on the bottom is keeping that tightly engaged against the board. And I always like to pull these on the long grain, it works better, easier for me. And I'll do this one. End over end. So now we've got them marked, we need to move on to the jarrah. Now when you do this and you turn the board over, you're referencing the opposite side, so I'm actually just going to run that single line down the middle. Before we go ahead and do this rip cutting, what we need to do is cut this jarrah piece to length, which for my measurements here, it's 825mm, because I don't want to be ripping more than I have to, especially in boards like jarrah. So I've gone ahead and I've already marked a knife line around, so let's get in here and we'll chop that off. In order to do this, we want to come in and deepen this knife line first before we do back cuts onto it. On this jarrah, I have no choice but to use a mallet. But if you've seen the video where I talk about all the classes, you'll see that you don't have to necessarily use a mallet. This is clearly a process you've seen me do heaps of times at this point, but it's necessary and definitely well worth the time and effort to do so. Noting that we're doing this little ridge on the waist side. So now we're actually going to go ahead and we're going to saw these boards. You've seen that I marked them on here. I did the same to my jarrah piece, and so now we're ready to go. Now if you want to, you can pencil that line in, and I generally do that because it does make it a little bit easier to actually see. Now there are also a couple of ways in which you can saw this. I'm going to saw this with it off hanging the edge of my bench with my panel saw, because I can actually saw a little more aggressive than if it's in my vise. And because I'm going to be doing that same process with the jarrah, I decided I'd do it with these smaller pieces as well. A little bit of counter wax on the plate makes this job a whole lot easier. Before we go ahead and prepare the edges of those and hand plane them all ready to be used, my next priority is to actually glue these together to see exactly what width I'm going to get in these boards after we've squared and hand planed these up, because I've used the two factory edges which I already know are square, and they're what we're going to be gluing together. So what I've got going on here is I'm going to sit it on two clamps, I'm going to glue it up, I'm going to do these clamps up and then bring this third clamp in to clamp in the middle. Now for something this wide you really don't need anything more. This is around that 600mm mark, as I mentioned before, exactly 607 millimeters, and so really you're going to feel at one edge, line them up with your fingers, and then you'll just clamp it up. Now remember, with these clamps they kind of put force in a 45-degree angle, pretty much all clamps do, and so that's why I say that only 3 is really needed for this, because if you do 45s here you work out that it actually covers the whole length. So we're going to grab a bead of glue, and I'm going to put bead glue only on one side. Now if you haven't got yourself one of these glue bots, it makes gluing so much easier. The nozzle never blocks up like using the traditional ones because it drops back down. It might get a little bit dirty, you just clean it off, and it never actually dries inside the middle of that nozzle. So I just grab this and I'm gonna put a bead of glue down the center, like so. And I like to pre-spread this just with my finger, just to ensure that it's got right out to the edges, because that's the spot you're gonna miss gluing. Then what I do is I put it here, and you do the old rub trick. That's ensuring the glue is really spread across things. Glue on one side should always be enough. You see a lot of people use way too much glue when they glue these sort of things up, and there's just no need. Just keep a cloth handy, and then I'll bring this in here. I'm just going to sit this over the edge here so I can spin these to clamp it up easier, or adjust them a little bit easier. Looks like I had this adjustment off. So okay, so I'm going to bring it up here where they're balanced. Now The one thing I have to make sure is this is pushed down against the aluminium, because that's my reference for flat. I don't want to have to be taking material off because I use bag gluing technique. So make sure they're pushed down. If you wish, you can grab a mallet, give them a tap, make sure they're really pushed down. And now I've just loosely done these up. Before I fully do them up, I'm going to slide this clamp in the middle here. Ensure that I can clamp that one up as well. Again, make sure that it's down, flat. So I hope you can see that there's actually a glue line here. I haven't fully done these clamps up. So we're just watching for that squeeze out. You know it's done up nice and tight when you've got squeeze out pretty much the whole way along. And then if you need a little bit of a damp rag or paper towel, just come in and wipe that excess glue off. So the glue's now dry, so let's take these clamps off and we'll work at dimensioning this piece. See how we did. Come up with a nice strong glue joint, so what we'll have to do is hand plane this, clean it up a little bit, and then joint the edges. So we need to clean the faces and get them flat first. It just happens that this is long enough that I can actually put my second brass dog here and sort of have this captive in here for hand planing without having any sort of locking dogs or anything like that. So that's going to make this a little easier. So I can see that this side here is a little bit higher, so I need to start by leveling that out. And because I want to maintain it, I'm actually just using a jack plane or a number 5 with a square cross blade, fairly shallow. Because I don't want to remove more than I have to, because these are already surfaced boards. So I'm using my fingers here to judge any little discrepancies in the levels, which is getting pretty good right now. So now I don't feel any ridge with my fingers down the middle here. We can concentrate on getting this flat. So now I'm happy that that's flat. What I have to do is square both these edges off. So to do this, I'm going to be pinching up here. So I'm holding it like that, and I'm using my finger as a fence. And we're just going to go through very lightly to start with. And we're just going to let it skip the top. And we can hear that. You can hear it's not one continuous sound, so we're not getting a full length shaving. Now we're starting to get a full length shaving. You might have heard that right up this end. So we're engaging and we skip. You see how it moves? Then we move through again. So now we've planed that, we need to check from our reference face back across to see how square it is. Now, I don't know if you can see that there, but if I run through, it's high on this left side, right side, your left. So to me, the high side is the camera side here. What we do is we line our plane up like we were before, but then we can move it right over, and because I roll the corners, or if you've got a camber, this works as well. So I'm lining this side of the plane up with my side, and that's gonna ensure that we cut just on that high side. So you can see we've got this half width shaving. Now, I like to double check after each shaving when I'm doing this, just to ensure I'm on the right track, which we are. But I need to take the shaving a little bit further on this far edge, not so far into the middle, so I'm going to, so instead of being right here in line, I'm actually going to push it across just a little bit further and then hold it here on the front with my thumb. And then we've got about a third of a width thickness here. Now it's not creating ridges because we've got the blade rolled. So I've just got to see where this looks like it's sitting high now. So it looks like it's sitting a little high all the way through. So what I'm going to do is just go back to in line with the opposite side, the low side. Come through once again. A couple of light passes twice. That should help level everything out. Now that's looking flat all the way through. So you can see, taking a few extra minutes and concentrating on it, you're going to get it exactly how you want it. So now we have to square up this other side and find out what our final width is after we've squared that. So let's go ahead and do that now. Full width shaving now. So the next step from here is to go ahead and square these other boards up and flatten the faces, get them all ready. So that's probably going to be the next hour and a half of work. So what I'm going to do is just show you some of the filming of it. Hopefully it goes a little quicker than that. Just need to compare the two in their thicknesses and hope that we've got them the same. One of these is way higher than the other. At this point, that last one we were working on's got much higher point, even though we removed a lot more of it. So we'll bring them in here. When they're heavy like this, it's harder to put them in and keep them together. I can feel they moved out of square. So there's one trick that I do, is if I want to still do that process, is I bring an F-clamp in here, F-clamp in down this end. So we got them flat, we got them in the right alignment, and now we can freely move them into our vise without them moving. Undo our clamps, plane them for level and flat. Now that I got it to this stage, because once again I want to ensure I've got a sharp blade for this, I'm just going to bring a smoother in, which I know is sharp because I sharpened it just before this, like all of these planes. Bring a square in, just double check that you got it right, that you didn't throw it out of square. Because anything's possible. Now that we've got them done, you can see that these are ever so slightly, maybe a millimetre or two wider than my Tasmanian oak boards. That's fine. You're not even really going to notice it, but that little bit of change does allow me to actually plane back to it to get a nice smooth surface after it's complete. Now, the other thing is, if we compare these boards, the Jarrah is actually thicker. You can see it there. It's thicker than the Tasmanian oak. Now, you could go ahead and face plane that down to the same thickness if that's what you wanted to do. In this case, I'm going to do all my half-lap joinery off my narrower boards to ensure that I get a proper half or halving joint with the thinner boards. Reason being is, I'm thinking that I can have that extra thickness proud on the surface, and I can do some sort of decorative beading or something on that to add a little more shadow to it and a little more decoration and just difference in the design of the door. I've not really played with that much, but in this case I thought it's a perfect project to try and play around a little bit because it's just a door for a cupboard that's repurposed from my tool cabinet that I had, and that's why it's up here already without a door. It's repurposed. It's been repurposed about 3 or 4 times now, and so this is kind of its final form, and so we're going to be adding a door to it to keep the dust out of here, since we've got hand planes and tools that we don't want dust in. And I've noticed that it is building up here. We're going to add a door for this, and that's why we're doing this project. So if you like this video, please do like and subscribe down below. While you're down there, do sound off in the comments. If there's something here that I did that you didn't, or something that you would do that I didn't, do leave that down below. And do stay tuned for the next video up here, which is part 2, which will go up here once it's live. Bye for now.